Hi there. In this short piece, I want to celebrate an important milestone in film history, a milestone that I'd like to draw some attention to today, as I consider it a very worthwhile thing to remember in a time when people are very much caught up with the present and the future. What am I rambling about? I'm talking about the 100th birthday of United Artists, an early, innovative film production and distribution studio responsible for bringing us some of the most brilliant titles of the period. Let's take a few moments to look into this partly forgotten studio on this special occasion. In 1919, the motion picture business was booming. Hollywood's production output topped history's charts, delivering approximately 800 pictures per annum. On February 5th of that year, a new and formidable opponent burst onto the scene when four of the old Hollywood giants teamed together to form the United Artists Corporation, a studio designed to grant unusual liberties to the creative minds that owned it. These four were firstly, David Wark Griffith, the great and influential trailblazing director of whom Orson Welles once claimed, "I've never really hated Hollywood, except for its treatment of D.W. Griffith. No town, no industry, no profession, no art form owes so much to a single man." Secondly, Charlie Chaplin, a prominent world figure by 1919, well on his way to fulfilling his legacy as one of the most famous actors in history. Thirdly, Mary Pickford, another big name at the time, who had ties with D.W. Griffith, having performed in several of his shorts. And finally, Douglas Fairbanks, the fourth founding member, whom Pickford was to marry the following year. United Artists was formed with the intention of independence in all stages of film manufacture, giving life to an artistic autonomy quite remarkable, given the dominating tendencies of the majors as the larger film studios are known. Particularly, UA provided an outlook for distribution and the ability to finance their own pictures, showcasing their own talents. Each founder held proportionate stakes in UA's shares. The studio went on to contribute some very excellent films to the world in its time. Griffith, now fresh off his controversial magnum opuses The Birth of a Nation and Intolerance, continued for a short time to deliver as befitted his status as the most acclaimed director alive, releasing United Artists' first film, Broken Blossoms, besides Way Down East and Orphans of the Storm. Chaplin went on to produce some of his best work, such as The Kid, The Gold Rush, City Lights, Modern Times, and The Great Dictator. Fairbanks did Mark of Zorro and The Thief of Baghdad, while the Academy recognized his wife's performance in Coquette with an Oscar. Sadly, as United Artists struggled on through the 30s, its challenge would seem to be keeping true to its namesake. The company managed well enough in its first 10 years, despite D.W. Griffith's early departure in 1924. However, the studio saw tougher times yet, as the talents themselves, relics of the silent age, aged rapidly, with Fairbanks and Pickford unable to draw box office receipts comparable to earlier years. Fairbanks finally abandoned UA, divorced Mary Pickford, and retired in 1934 at the early age of about 50. Pickford later described working with the now sole founding member, Chaplin. "Nothing in the world would induce me to live over the agonizing years I experienced with Charlie as a business partner." After Griffith's departure, Chaplin and Pickford had hired the illustrious Joseph Schenk as president in 1924, and over the following decades he continued to provide access to big-name stars and producers, like Disney, David O. Selznick, and other famous producers. But UA found itself alone in 1935, when Schenk left to set up the merger that would become 20th Century Fox. UA was saved when, after World War II, when the studio was near bankruptcy, attorneys Robert Benjamin and Arthur Krim came on and resurrected the studio. For the most part, the awful statement made by producer Richard Rowland in response to the studio's inception in 1919 held at least a grain of truth. The lunatics have taken charge of the asylum. The wonderful and inventive minds of artists are not usually the minds of prudent and calculating business executives. United Artists' heyday was done, and after its reorganization in 1951, it sold its production unit and became a distributing and financing company alone. In this manner, it contributed to the realization of several noteworthy titles throughout ensuing years: Rambo, Rocky, James Bond, Billy Wilder's movies, The African Queen, The Great Escape, Paths of Glory, The Magnificent Seven, West Side Story, and so on. In 1967, United Artists was sold to Transamerica Corporation, who tolerated it until the crushing box office defeat that was Heaven's Gate, and in 1988, MGM bought and absorbed United Artists into MGM/UA Entertainment. It seems an ignoble end for a studio steeped in history. Well, Tom Cruise thought the same, because in 2006 he and UA co-owner Paula Wagner launched an initiative that was supposed to return something of the studio's former glory to the now all but defunct company. Cruise made a couple of films with UA labels, namely Lambs for Lions and Valkyrie.
There has to be a chance of success.
That's why you're here. But remember, nothing ever goes according to plan.
But his and Wagner's hopes soon crumbled, and UA with them.
What makes you think you're stronger than the very momentum of history?
Since that fateful outing, United Artists has had a hand in only 7 titles.
Do you realize what you've done?
It's strange to think of the full century of United Artists' existence and to remember the names and ideas that filled the day then, as our world moves incessantly onwards towards a future whose question in all of our minds seems to be, will it equal the heights of glory we've enjoyed in the long past?